Okay, I assume we are on.
Well, excellent. Welcome back. It's been a while.
It has. Nice, refreshing holiday for myself and lots of work for you.
Yeah, no holidays for me. I did go to a wedding yesterday. That was quite cool. But
Yeah.
that's no time off.
Well, you looked very snazzy in your outfit. I
I
saw
thought so.
the.
That's why I shared it. I thought, pretty dapper that.
Gotta show
Well, we
off.
should get on track. Yeah, we are. Apologies for the delay. We are going to do our best to keep these as consistent as we can, but we both do travel a lot, as well as obviously family and other commitments.
And last time it was so hot. It was like the hottest day the UK had ever had that day. So the idea of thinking, let alone exploring tools and stuff, was too much.
And I've got a south-facing office, so it was torture.
Yeah, yeah, same for
But anyway,
myself.
we're back and we are all set up to explore again.
We
Tonight,
are.
I'm actually looking forward to tonight because we've done 3 of these now, and we did Postman with things that we both kind of knew.
Hmm.
We had a look at React Testing Library, which was both new to both of us.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I can't remember what did we do the other one.
We did
My brain is
DevTools. We did
Oh yes,
DevTools.
we did
Yeah.
DevTools, and again that was familiar to us. Whereas tonight, I actually don't know how to use the stuff we're going to look at.
Yep. Yep. This is completely new to me as well. It's kind of combining a little bit of both, isn't it? Because we're
It is.
we're gonna continue our exploration of Postman, but we're actually going to look at some of the, I want to say more advanced features, but some of the different features that maybe don't get quite as much of a look in and as discussion.
Yeah, I think it's like there's a lot to Postman that I think we still assume it. We call it a testing tool in our community because that's what most of us use it for. But obviously, it's advanced in itself a lot to be a developer's best friend basically, to help them do lots of things they want as they build their APIs. But as obviously a big part of that is testing, and there's a few things that we can utilize and take advantage of.
yep. But before we do that, we should probably introduce ourselves.
Good idea.
Yes, good idea. So, who the hell are you?
So, I'm Richard Bradshaw. I'm the friendly tester across lots of social media channels and currently the boss at Ministry of Testing. And yourself?
I'm Mark Winteringham, and I'm terrible at doing these bits, but yes, I am known as 2-Bit Tester on probably just Twitter, not quite as social as Richard. Um, and yes, I am the dojo boss at the Ministry of Testing, so I'm the long-suffering employee of Richard.
But together we started something called Automation and Testing, a namespace and a mindset, just to think ever so slightly differently about automation or test automation, as some people refer to it. We're big advocates for using automation to support our testing, but we like to utilize all avenues in automation, and getting familiar with tools like Postman is a big part of that. We like to give ourselves as many options as possible by we call it filling up our imaginary tool belt. So tonight, we started this stream and this Twitch because we both were doing this in our own time. Whereas we thought, why not record these? It'd be quite fun, I think, for other people to watch, and stick them on YouTube for people to watch afterwards and see how two experienced automation engineers explore and get to grips with new tools.
Yeah, and we're certainly going to be putting that to the test. I think tonight it's going to be an interesting one with these
We're
two
just
two
gonna
features.
we're just gonna click buttons and read screens.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Um,
Right, let's get to it then.
so what should we start off with? Mock servers or monitors?
I think mock servers because I'm curious if this is a local thing
Hmm.
or some sort of cloud deployable thing. Like, it's obviously without clicking on any of the screens. All I know is that there's a mock server functionality. What Mark's doing now while he types away is myself and Mark, and I think I don't know how many other people have contributed to Wrestle Booker.
A couple of people.
Yeah.
So Andrew, who is our dev boss in Ministry of Testing, has contributed, and a couple of other people have sort of helped out with a few issues, specifically around batch scripting. Um,
Oh yeah. So while that starts up, this is a tool called restful-booker-platform, which is like a test playground, an automation playground that myself and Mark have built. 90% Mark, to be fair. It's like it's an approach to a modern application. So it's got a suite of APIs, tried to be designed as close to microservices as we can. There is a front end written in React, and obviously there's databases and stuff like that. So we've tried to make it a modern playground that is a bit more representative of the kind of products you may be working on, if, of course, you are in a web API space.
yep.
So it's open source, and you can get it from Mark's GitHub.
Yep. So
And
you can get
I'll
it from
ping up
here.
a link now. It's also Dockerized, and there is also an example of a Circle CI. And as you can see, there's also some security vulnerabilities. So be careful
Yes,
downloading this.
I have a few dependencies to update. I think let's have a
Yeah.
quick peep. Yes, yes.
But it is
So
completely open source, so you can, as we said, if you want to get familiar with Docker, you can use this. And the best thing about it as well is we've also filled it with lots of examples of different tools, a way of doing automated checking in different tools. And as Mark's just highlighted, there's a permanently deployed instance over at automationandtesting.online, and you can get access to the APIs as well as the front end.
yep,
So you don't have to deploy your own instance, but we're going to deploy our own instance because we've got a bit of a hunch, I guess, that this mock thing might work locally.
yep, yep.
So let's find
So
out.
let's just find out, see what happens. So okay.
Interesting. Well, so
So
the easiest thing for us is probably a call to log in, I guess.
yeah, maybe the validate endpoint, we could mock that. So I think the first thing we're going to have to do actually is we're going to have to kill the login service. So if I do that, uh, then we do that, kill. Uh, just check that's no longer up. Okay, cool. So that's the auth service actually killed, and we should see that when we make a request locally. So we're going back to some of the old tools that we've talked about before. Um, oh, hang on, no, I won't do it here with it. Cool. Yep. So that's not loading.
That's just going to die at some point.
Yep. So
Cool. So let's go to Postman and see what we got. So I'm just having a quick look at that bottom down there. It says, what is a mock server? Lets you simulate a real API using request response pairs.
call the
So that's quite
examples.
interesting. It's obviously kept very mock-like, as in if you send this, you'll get this.
Yep.
And yeah, it's got some examples and some docs by the looks of things. Or we could just go ahead and see if it works.
I'm always one for just trying it
Well,
out.
that looks good.
That's a that's a fantastic start.
I think you're going to have to do a get mark, which is not what you want.
Oh dear, that's not good.
Yeah, let's try that again.
There we go.
There we go. Oh
That's
well,
unusual.
Postman, if you're watching, don't know how to recreate that, but get it
Yeah,
fixed.
Danny, I know you're one of our number one fans. Sort it out. Okay. I'm curious about this URL
Well, I think
thing
that's
here.
based on your collection. That's a global variable, isn't it?
Ah, yes, because we did some stuff with environments in the
Yeah.
past. So
So
let's.
you are already on it.
So I'm going to change that to no environment for now
Do you
because
think it's going to let you enter a URL?
I have no idea. No.
No, I
So
didn't
so
think so.
I guess we have to
Yeah.
change that. Okay. So let's go to localhost environment. Have a quick look.
So we don't have one called URL. We have one called host.
So let's change this. All right. Let's change
I would
this.
duplicate it because you've probably got collections that use
Yeah.
host.
So this is going to be a mock for the auth service, which runs off of HTTP localhost 3004.
Yeah.
Oops. Cool. So that's updated
Well, that's
that.
interesting though, because your local instance, oh, it doesn't call the proxy, does it?
It does. It does have a little proxy. So it's calling 8080, but 8080 is then
It's
routing to
forwarding to that.
3004.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're mocking under the proxy, not the proxy
Yes.
itself. So if you're not
No.
familiar, obviously, a lot of you won't be. Within the RESTful Booker solution, there's a middle proxy layer which does all the routing.
Yeah.
So the front end doesn't know what port numbers and where the APIs are deployed.
Yeah.
It has a routing file, and it happens to point to port 3004 for that microservice.
Yep. So you can see them all here. They say 8080, but they don't actually. So it's actually the route here. So the fact that it says branding is what determines which API it routes to. So, okay, so I've set that as 3004. I'm going to go back to mock server. Let's try that again. Change it to a post. It's called validate. It
It's
resends to.
annoying that it adds another one, isn't it?
Yeah, I was trying to delete that earlier, but
You're not allowed to delete that one. You've
no,
got to keep it.
it does kind of imply that you've configured two.
Yeah.
Okay, so it should just send a 200. I tell you what, I'm going to cheat a little bit and show another little feature that we have, which is if I do auth swagger UI.html. So this gives me the Swagger documentation for the UI API.
I think it might do created.
That's why. Let's try it out now. Oh, except I need a token. Oh, it's one of those things where you take one step forward and then 15 steps back. Actually, why am I doing it like that way? We could just look in the developer tools. Go admin password, super secure as always. Let's refresh that page. Validate sent it a 200.
Just empty, I think. Yeah.
Yep, with an empty response, just an OK.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so let's click next. Configure your mock server.
Give
Yeah,
it a name.
to describe your requests. RBP auth mock
Or validate, I guess.
auth.
Or you want to just
Well,
specific to
I
validate.
suppose we could add more endpoints in later.
Oh, now you choose an environment. Interesting.
An environment is a group of variables. Yep. Calls to private mock servers require a Postman API key header. Oh, let's leave that for now. Might be
See,
limited
and that
by.
makes me think it's going to get deployed somewhere.
I think
It's
you're
really weird.
right, which might make might make this a bit challenging for local stuff. Cool. So, so send a request to this, followed by the request path. Oh, so maybe. So if I do validate, do a post. Cool. So that's set up. But I think
Yep.
that what's going to happen here is this is going to fail locally.
Well, that has no way of knowing
Yeah,
unless Postman's running a proxy and intercepting it.
it's not. So there is a way around this that we can do for this.
There is. Yeah.
So if we go into the code and open the RESTful Booker project.
I'm curious by the solution though of why you would want a mock in the cloud. So like, if I'm testing locally, I'm trying to mock various things to get to get my controllability and look after my state.
Mm.
Whereas here, I would potentially have to mock several endpoints, configure my app or my my website or my app, deploy it, and then utilize the
And I
mock.
think that's it. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think it's a remote mock.
I wonder if there is a solution. We have a Google afterwards because we know that Postman can run as a proxy. So I'm surprised you can't turn a proxy on and configure it like you can in Charles.
Hmm.
You can say any request to this URL, aka localhost, point it to this URL.
So I imagine probably what you would have to do is have some sort of maybe some configuration in your deployment script or some sort of YAML file that you could update that would just update the routing or the internal hosting maybe. So in this instance, let's ignore that mocking because that'll confuse things. So this is where the proxy is, and it's pretty straightforward. So it's just the switch statement. So we create a proxy server, and then basically it just gets the request URL and then does the shonkiest the, the shonkiest regex you've ever seen. But what I could do is I could modify the target in here. So rather than localhost 3004, we could take this. So it's like you said, you would have to sort of configure the routing internally. So I've changed it now to point to Postman. So let's save that. This means I do need to kill all of this and start again. There's nothing wrong with hard-coded URLs.
I'm just reading the docs. There's some interesting features around what you can do with this mocking tool. Seems you can actually create a mock of a collection.
Oh.
So you mock a whole collection, and then you can deploy the whole collection.
Hi, James. So I've actually trying to up my Twitch game, and I have the dashboard on my mobile in front of me, so I can actually see people chatting to us for once, and
That's a
actually
good idea.
and actually engage with people like you do on Twitch. Crazy. In defense of my hard-coded URLs, this proxy is only ever used locally. So this is not. So when this is deployed, we actually use a proper load balancer, and not this. Um, sort of spit and twigs implementation of a proxy. Okay, cool. So that's up and running. So let's give that a crack now. That did not work. Try refreshing. Ooh. So there might be something not quite right here.
HTTPS or it looks right.
Yeah.
So did it rebuild properly? Does it need
Well,
to rebuild?
that's what I'm going to try and see. Pushing to auth. Let's give it a little bit of a tweak there. Let's reset this. Yeah, let's give that a crack.
But you're not rebuilding the jar files, right? Is the proxy a jar file?
No, it's not. It's just a JavaScript file that's just run.
Okay.
So the script will just do node proxy, and away we go. Okay, so that's all working. Brilliant. So if I
Well, it says auth, so
yeah, but
did it log to the auth API
that's
or
a
the proxy?
that's a different tool. That's a monitoring tool. But we'll look into that. Yeah, you see,
Oh, there you go. Push into
so
auth.
it's doing that. So,
Can you hit it again in Postman just to make sure nothing's like died on us?
yeah, that's working fine.
What about the fancy headers? Like the mock wasn't created with any weird.
Temporary headers.
What's this Postman token all about?
I think that's the if it's private thing that you need. Oh
You
yeah,
said public fields, didn't you?
James was thinking the same thing as well. Is it whether or not it's other headers? let's see if I can console log this out. So let's.
Can you? So let's go back to our other dev tools. Can you try fetching that in Chrome in the dev tools?
Well, looking at it, it's not. So it's sending the request, but it's not resolving.
No, but can you hit the Postman mock via DevTools? Like, just can you
Yeah,
actually call it outside of Postman?
yeah. Let's give that a crack. So I'm looking at the wrong folder. So let's do. Oh, hang on. Okay, let's copy that. Oops. Right. So that's yes. Thank you. Please type allow pasting. Jeez. Okay. All right, I'm going to copy that into here, just so I've got somewhere to edit it. And we are going to change this to.
Oh, is it as? Oh no, it can't be that. I was wondering if it's as simple as putting a slash at the end.
No, I think I might know what it is. Ah, no, I know what it is. I think, so maybe our mock's not quite configured correctly.
Correctly.
Correctly. So I forgot to put auth in the path of the mock.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Yes. So let's not save that. Let's go back. So how do we find our mock? Do we just go back here? No.
They got the other one though,
Where
not the one you made.
view
Oh,
developer? No.
you've
Where?
interesting. You've got an environment called Auth mock.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Can you edit that?
No, it's just the environment is set up for us. Come on, speak to me.
Well, it has to be in
Browse.
that mock
Oh, it's
page,
oh,
shouldn't it?
there's some bits down here. Oh, hang on. So we got a.
Browse.
What does that do? Oh, that's a find. That's the console. No. Browse. Yeah. There we go.
Mocks. There you go.
Mocks. Perfect. Right. Okay.
Yay.
So yes. How do I edit it?
Love and intuitive you are. I don't think you can edit it. I think that's part of the fun.
Oh, damn it. All right then. All right, let's start again then.
Start again.
Start again. Okay, let's do this again. So what I'd missed was this.
I know you're driving, but it's fun to keep watching you drive.
Yes, well, maybe once I've done this, you can have a crack at making a collection. So RBP auth mock, and then turning that into a mock. Okay.
You say that like I actually read the docs. I just found the docs.
Well, while I'm driving, you've got time. Okay, let's give that a crack. Okay, so now let's try that. Go back to build, and we do auth/validate and post. Okay, that worked. Obviously, the host has changed. So let's go back to our code here and modify this. Oops.
Nearly.
It's so close. I was trying to be clever there. All right, let's try that. See what happens. Oh, I wish use together would not make the our
You just
sharing
can't hide
thing.
that at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wish I could hide it.
So while this loads up, though, I'm not struggling with a use case. I can see a perfectly valid use case. Obviously, having mocks configured, set up, controlled via Postman, click deploy, and stuff happens. Obviously, that I get the benefit of that, but like not having a local instance surprises me.
Yeah, I mean,
Like not being able to run it locally.
yeah, it means that, if you wanted to use this, it makes it more challenging, I suppose, if we want to run like integration checks locally against an API that requires mocks. There's probably going to be a bit more work required to get
Yeah.
that to work. Okay.
Like for your automated checks, obviously you want stability, so mocking that, deploying that, configuring your environment to point to them, and then running your checks. But obviously, from like another great use of mocking is exploratory testing.
Hmm.
So being able to just mock a response, try it, change it, try it, change it, try it, change it. That would be really
Yeah.
tedious with this.
Yeah, and also
Oh,
actually, what if I want a couple of different states with this? Like, say for example, I want to try, like, I need to clear it down or reset it, or reconfigure the response data or something like that. It's
well, I think that's the thing about the pairing. So obviously, you really can't with the simple gets.
mm.
Obviously, with your post, you could alter it to do something different, but
Okay, that hasn't worked. Obviously, not the most successful thing. Let's try console logging this out. See what there must be some sort of error I'm getting back that that's worth having a look at. So I'm going to console log the request itself.
you go back to the app.
Hmm.
Sorry, not the app. Sorry, go back to Firefox. Why is this URL so different? Why is it not /validate or auth? Why is
Um,
auth not in there?
I,
Oh,
it,
it's over here. I can see it's over there.
it could be because it's not finished. Maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's the wrong one. Let's click on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, /validate. Yes, it is it in the right endpoint.
Hmm. Interesting.
I
Right.
wonder if it's because yeah, is it because you're crossing protocols like HTTP to
Well,
HTTPS?
that's why I thought it might be worth logging this out somewhere and seeing what happens. So, do I get? It just says undefined.
Undefined.
Ah, my favorite error from JavaScript. Um, oh, let's have a quick look at HTTP proxy and see if there's HTTP proxy JS error. So this may turn into a
This is more turning into a node
node
developing.
debug situation. HTTP
Well,
proxy.
we can time box it though, so let's give it 5 minutes more. Like we've shown that you can deploy a mock to the cloud. Like
Hmm.
we're struggling utilizing it, but that's restful Booker's difficulty.
Yep.
Like in theory, what you've done makes sense. Like you've configured it to run.
Yep. Okay, so it looks like we can dump out any errors here. So let's add a function in there, console log E if there's an error. Yep. Okay, let's try that. See if it actually gives us something worthwhile.
So while we do that in a sec, I've had read the docs a little bit more. It seems quite interesting. It looks like there's a way of saving all your other stuff and turning it into a mock. So we'll try that after we've had a little bit more play with this,
Yeah.
because that would make the setup of a mock a lot easier. If you could literally call the real system, save, done.
Yeah.
That's obviously quite a nice feature if you do need just to deploy a set of mocks to the cloud and configure your system to use them. Be interesting to see as well if you do a second mock, whether that URL must stay the same for that namespace. The whole unique ID bit, like this bit that you can't.
Yeah. Oh, you
That
mean?
that must stay the same. Otherwise, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm praying that stays the same.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll create a second one and see how we get on. Okay, so that's up and running. And then we're going to run this. Okay, still not playing ball. Whoa! Host localhost is not inserts alt names.
It's a Postman issue.
Yeah.
So you're
Host
not
name and IP does not match certificates alt names. Right. Okay. So yeah, it is because it's transferring from HTTP to HTTPS, and because I am just carrying all of the headers and all of the sort of gumph that comes from localhost across to Postman, it's obviously erroring. So this, I don't think this is something we could fix right now, unfortunately.
I honestly don't think it's designed for it. Like but it is weird that you passed on any cert, or what would happen? Because if you deployed, like, let's say you deployed automation testing online to point to that mock,
Hmm.
your host would be automation and testing.online.
Yeah, it would be,
But
yes.
it's saying it's not in the cert's alt name. So how would you get anything into the cert's alt name?
Yeah. Yeah, that is disappointing. But oh well, we've I think that's our first wall
Yeah.
we've hit. But
Right.
yeah, learned something there.
Well, let's have a quick look to see how you can make these really not very useful mocks a bit quicker. I think we're missing something. There has to be. There's obviously something that we're not quite
Yeah.
understanding with the way they've built
Well,
this.
this in itself is interesting that we now have these collections that have been created for us. So I guess we can just go play and mock collection. Cool, that's quite cool.
Well,
So
that's the bit I was about to try with the
yeah,
real. So with this request here,
yeah. So why not give that a crack and see how you get on?
you should be able to say mock collection. AIT online mock Mac version tag system. Don't make it private. But I don't think it will mock anything properly though, because it's got no.
The request URL changed. So I
Well,
think.
that's because it's a different collection though. So what did it actually do? Is that?
Yeah.
What can I do with it?
Oh, that's new. So I'll right click on it and get some other features as well. Set URL.
What did that? Nothing happened. Yeah, who knows what's happening there? So I'm just going to read through this. So it basically says that we go to, oh, come on, get Brandon. So we can go on save. Oh, hang on, no. So I have to send it. Send it first.
But that's just sending it locally. I think it has to be. I think it has to be that so we configure this to be URL. So the idea being is that because it looks to me like if we, so we've created a mock here. So yeah, this is, and this has configured an environmental variable called, oops, it's not called oops, it's called URL. Yeah, so it's created a variable for us called URL, which is populated. I think that's populated our. Is that the correct mock? That doesn't look right. That, so 801B blah 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 blah. Yeah, that they don't match. So do you need to do something with this? Oh, I think you copy mock URL. You did something. You right clicked and got something else up. Set globals. Set URL. Does that?
No, that didn't do anything.
It didn't, did
So
it?
ignoring that, I was basically trying to find a way of creating a mock quickly. So according to these docs, once you've sent this, you can do a save response, which I'd never seen, but apparently if you save it as an example.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know where that went, but oh, this is the example.
Yeah.
All right, so I give this example a name of, I don't know, get branding success or something. And then if I save that example, I can create a mock with that response.
Oh,
So
I
because I've saved it
see.
automatically, so if you went through all your collections and did a save example,
Oh,
it will automatically create you a mock when you do this mock collection. Oh, actually, no, not right now. But like, how do I go back to the existing mocks?
so that was that play button and then mocks here.
So if I delete this, because I've no idea what they are anyway.
Yeah.
So if I go back to this, because I've saved a response, I should be able to do. So create mock.
So James
So
says the
that's,
example, yeah, then the example then becomes your response stub. Ah,
yeah, that's what it says in the
yeah,
docs.
which
I just want to see if.
makes sense because you obviously need to capture that part as well. So you can click on the
So
copy icon to the right just here. Cool.
right. So if I do /branding,
Nice.
yay.
That's
Okay.
quite a nice quick way of creating them. So I assume somewhere in browse you have to modify your examples. So this makes more sense to me now that this isn't the place to edit your mocks. You obviously want to modify them in build, but
So I think if you change this and save it again, it would probably override the example. Would be my
uh,
guess.
so let's save that. Save this example. But what if that closes down? How do we get back to that? Like, how do we view that again? So if I close that down now, can I? Is there
Oh,
any
you know
way?
what? If you keep
Oh,
saving examples,
top right.
it creates many more.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
add examples.
Well, that's my first example. But I don't know if you can edit that. Try it.
Just click on it. There you
Trying.
go.
So let's say mock and save it, and then go back to this.
So this can be quite
Sunday.
handy if you had.
Yeah.
So this is quite handy if, say, like you had a resource endpoint where you could change the ID. So the actual URL is not changing, but you could have different. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier about like what do you do when you have um, like an endpoint that you might expect to return different data sets. Um, this allows you to do that.
Well, this makes sense for the exploratory bit now, because if I did build a version of my app that was all configured to use that URL, the 7B27, blah, blah, blah,
Mm.
blah, blah. If I did configure my app to work, now I could just be playing in Postman, change my endpoint, save, do my action on the app, get the response or, information I wanted, come back into Postman, change it to give me a 403, save, and carry on. Because
Ooh,
even though this response is positive, I'm guessing I could go into the raw or not, where the headers even be in the headers, wouldn't it?
yeah.
No, it's not. How do I change that? I don't think I can.
Oh, that's because you're not in the example.
All right. Oh yeah.
So there. So while you're doing that, James has
Oh, there,
mentioned,
200.
yeah. So James has
So
mentioned a clever idea is that whether or not you can actually save the example in pre-request script or in the tests tab.
yeah, that gave me a 403.
Oh,
All
nice.
right. Well, so you can update them on the fly, which makes
Yeah.
if we could fix our issue with restful booker, we could take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So
So
you're wondering if you can utilize the mock.
yeah, like call pm.mock.save example or something like that. But Postman mocks. I
So
mean,
yeah, is there another reason for saving responses in Postman? Because I've never saved responses in Postman. So I'm wondering
um,
if there's, apart from having an example, can you produce some sort of magical documentation using the examples? I'm guessing you can.
well,
Bit like Swagger perhaps.
given that there's a whole documentation feature to this, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a case.
So that makes sense. So it's kind of utilizing existing stuff you would have done,
Yeah.
but right-clicking, create mock.
Mhm.
So what would it do if we created? Well, I don't want to test it now. That's Danny's job. But I was wondering, what if you saved two examples for the exact same GET request?
Well, this is what it's talking about here. Is I think you can use so like things like query params. You can actually tie them. So in this example here, they're saying you can tie your ID query to an example. Basically, what it'll do is it'll probably do like a lookup on the URL and then match that to a specific response.
You can't code your app to do that. That's like breaking. That's changing your app's behavior.
Oh no, that query string I would imagine is from the app. So in our
Oh
case,
right,
we
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
booking slash
Oh, I
one.
understood that.
Yeah.
But that would be a whole new example. That's why.
Mm.
If you literally change the URL, so I'm now wondering what happens if you save two GET responses. So if we went and changed the branding API now
What? So if
to
I just did
change to give
save
a different name,
at the moment,
so you'd have to
oh,
no, so you'd have to do another call.
so we do what? So send.
So over here on get
Oh,
branding.
sorry, I was on the wrong one.
So if we did actually send that, which it seems to have gone down, maybe.
No,
Oh
it's
no, we've
just
somehow ended up losing our URL. Oh, we on off mock. We need to
sorry.
be back on.
Yeah,
How did we end up off that?
localhost env.
No, we were on AIT. It was
Uh,
pointing to AiTOnline, was it not?
no, I think it was. I think it was just hard. Hang on, let's just preload this.
Okay, just click
Oh,
all the buttons.
what are the other ones doing? Oh, they were all using host. Oh no, they. Oh, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think it was running locally. Let's give that a crack there. There we go. That'll fix that. Okay. So
So
you
if we
say.
actually go to local, we can't log in, can we? So, what if we just change the response here and then save example? You can't edit that, of
Oh,
course.
so we go. So we're saying save another example. So we've got one
That's what I
example
wanted to
already,
try.
and then we change this again and create a second one.
Yeah, so get branding number 2. Good naming convention. So now we've got two examples. I'm wondering which one this one is the mock, I guess. No, that's not the mock. Is
That's
that
the
the
one.
mock?
That's the mock.
So it's still using example 1.
Yeah.
So is there any way of getting example 2? Because it's the same endpoint. I don't know why you'd want to do that. I'm just testing
Yeah.
Postman now. Let's go back to utilizing this as an actual tool.
But I do
So,
like James was suggesting, like the idea that maybe you could actually use something like pre-request script that you could actually change your example there. So you could modify it in pre-request script and then update it or tell it which example to use or something might be handy.
did you find anything? I don't know why you'd want to though, like because
So
if you're gonna call
it's
the
essentially
API,
programmatically modifying your mocks before
but
running the
you
test.
would need a downstream API. So you would have to have an API that called another API.
Ah, yes, because you have to
Otherwise, what's the
call the
point?
API that you're going to mock to get that
Yeah.
down to
Otherwise, you're just gonna call a mock. What's the point in
yeah,
calling a mock?
yeah, exactly.
It makes sense if you deployed a full set of API calls, configured your app,
Hmm,
and then tested away.
yeah.
But like you say, this idea of being able to, it would be interesting to find a way of switching uh, between set responses. So if I do a get and I want a 403 followed by a 401 followed by a 200, a 201, etc.
Hmm,
Well, you didn't only really do the error codes. Like, and now I would have to be in Postman reconfigure save, and that's fine. But for the rest of the data, it makes a lot of sense. So when I worked at O2, I built my own mock in Node, and depending on the name of the offer that I opened, I got different responses.
well, I
So
think
I saved. So this is what you would do here.
yeah, that's your key differentiator there, isn't it? The
Yeah. And that's what that ID1 was about. So obviously, in my example in O2, we would load an app that was called "shouldn't be able to redeem" or "should give you a 403 when you try and save it." So I built a whole set of data and different rules for it. But then it gets really complicated with mocking because you'd need to chain those calls. So the get offers API would have to actually. So let's use the example of restful booker. We would need to mock get rooms with all the room examples that we'd want to fail, and then have a set of, add booking calls for each room example we had, and it would become huge. But it would give us that stability that people look for.
Yeah.
It is doable. It's just, you would need I think you'd need to save a lot of responses on this, but it does seem quite easy. And I think, if anything, anyone watching this thinking of using this, I think I'd love to hear some example naming conventions if anyone has any, because I reckon it could get pretty messy quite quickly, especially if you call them number one and number two,
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think, like, on reflection, that initially I was maybe giving it a bit of a harder time than it is. I think actually, yeah, like you say, the feature sets around it are quite good. The main challenge I see is how you integrate this with an existing application, because depending on how your routing works, I'm not really sure how you'd get around those issues with, like, the certificates and stuff like that. Yeah.
well, yeah, that's what. Ask Danny. Ask Danny. If you
Hmm.
watch this back, Danny, how do you get around,
Yeah,
these?
is the issue on our side, or is it something? Is it a combination of both, or is it, there's a specific view of how this is being used? I don't know. But that's quite cool.
Yeah, can
Should
see it
we?
being useful. I think if you are an avid user of Postman, it feels to me like it was built for people that have all those examples saved already.
Hmm.
You've got, all your collections are nicely organized,
Well, if you
and then
look at
right click build mock.
the browse sort of section, there's clearly a distinct flow coming through here, with sort of starting with the API definition stuff here, that then will obviously feed into the collections and the environments, and then those in themselves will feed into the monitors, the mocks, and I'm not quite sure what integrations are. Something that are coming soon. Oh, exciting!
GitHub hooks, probably.
Yeah, it feels quite hooky.
So yeah, we've got, about maybe 10, 15 minutes. We were gonna have a look at monitor, just because we'd never had a chance to play around with this either. So enter the request you want to monitor. Optionally add a request body by clicking on the plus.
I don't think we need to worry about the request body.
So
Yeah.
again, though, we're going to struggle with local hosts. So I think this needs to be,
Oh, let's do this with the live version.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, James. I'll look at curling the command from terminal later, because we'll do a write up about this and share this on our site as well. So I'll add that at the end and see actually how I got on.
So there's no way for us to break branding, and there's no way for us to change or slow it down.
That's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong, my friend, because I have access, and I could kill
But I
the
was thinking
service.
we could just do the request body if we wanted to right now. We could just hit that in Postman and then just alter it, and it would fail, right? If we went in and altered the branding, it would
Yes,
fail.
yes. I mean, we could
Oh,
go
well,
in.
I want response body though. I don't want the request. Oh yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, ignore
Yes.
me. Get rid
Well,
of that.
let's set that up, and then I'll go in and I'll kill it.
Configuration.
On
Monitor
So
name. Monitoring. Branding API. Don't really need an environment. How often do we want to run it?
let's run it every
Minute.
minute, every 5 minutes.
Only do 5. Oh, we're gonna get one run. we yeah, we can't do any less than that.
Yeah.
region.
It doesn't
UK.
really matter. What are the additional preferences? Receive email notifications for failures and errors. Don't follow redirects. It's quite handy bits and pieces there. Okay.
So we've built that now.
Yep.
So this monitoring here will hopefully show me a monitor if it opens me, you. Nice. Don't know what that means.
I created
Delete.
it. It's mine. Oh, so I clicked on something. And oh, get a little
You've gained
dashboard. Oh, we can run it manually. So let's run it now. It
got a
says
response. It was
blue.
very quick.
What does that
What
mean?
was the dot there? Why can't I click on that dot?
What?
Oh, play.
Oh,
Oh, you can run it.
hmm. I don't.
Interesting.
They're two different graphs, are they? Are they two different?
Well, no, that play button was a test. So I think before I clicked play, it was just the blue response. And now I've got the number of tests at the bottom.
All right, let's kill that API then.
So again,
Keys.
I reckon if you had tests in Postman for that collection and you added a monitor, I wonder if you could run the different tests from there against live, which would be pretty cool. As in from the dashboard. Actually, I'm just going to assume I know that you can.
All right, let's try this.
Oh, you're going to take down the cluster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not the cluster, just the pod. I don't want to be fixing everything. RM pod. No, is it RM pod? Yeah, RM
Can you just
pod.
reboot the pod?
Well, this is the rebooting. Deletes. Yeah, I didn't think RM was right. This is essentially how you restart it. You delete the pod, and then you have a service in place that goes, oh, hang on, the pod's down, create a new one. So let's run that.
So you're going to be
That's
quick. I'll let you be
deleted.
quick then because the lag of me trying to do that.
Run.
Top right, run.
Oh, got a blue. Got a blue.
Well, blue's fine though.
And then if we
Blue just means it's running, so it's going to time out. I think. Don't know what the timeout was.
Oh, so when you clicked, that was just a coincidence.
So I clicked on the blue dot, which made it play, which gave me a green pass at the bottom.
I think that was just coincidence. I think you just clicked it just as the.
Oh, you reckon as it finished?
Yeah.
So go back to Postman. Well, I don't know why I'm telling you to go back. I can go back myself.
Yeah. Why are we paying for this tool if you're not going to use it?
So I wonder what the timeout was. Oh, that's taking me back up here again. How do I?
No, that's just. Request timeout. There you
Right. So it's just literally never going to die right now.
go. Damn it. Oh no, it went red. Response time 10.3 seconds.
Oh, that's because we've just added it. So I think that's backdating the time that we set.
Well, let's see. So we've got another branding pod running. So should we try that again?
Yep.
Keep delete pod.
Oh no, should we try and run it now to make it pass again before
yeah,
you do that?
Yeah, good point. So run that.
Yeah. So
It might actually still be down just because. Okay, cool. So Matt says that blue means the monitor run is in progress.
yeah, that's what. Oh
Yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
So it was just coincidence that you pressed that button
Slow,
and
innit?
it's all good.
Refresh. Oh, it failed again.
Oh, but it tried it again. Oh, maybe that was just because it hit the 5-minute mark. Okay, so try one more run, just to be sure. And refresh.
That's annoying.
There we go. Cool. Right, now let's kill it.
Where's that some test name coming from? This pass.
Oh, that's because I think it's an old.
Is that an actual genuine test that we have on that endpoint?
I imagine that's probably I imagine that's probably what it's. I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah, if you go and find that endpoint, I reckon there's a test in that collection from when we were doing. Why can't I control this? Stop clicking. How'd you get out of this weird view?
There we go.
Yeah. So this, I reckon, there's a test in here.
It's here. But you're right. Yeah. This one because it created a collection called monitoring branding API and a test there.
It created a self-attest.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Look, it actually did genuinely create a test.
That's quite handy.
Interesting.
So it is.
So if we save that, well, that's going to alter the monitor, isn't it? Okay. So I wonder if you monitored an existing, call that had lots of tests on it already, it probably wouldn't use them. It would create its own. So it is basically created a runner to run in live.
Yeah.
And they're running it on a period of whatever you set.
And I guess you can modify
AKA a monitor.
But I guess beyond a monitor, you could probably modify this test to do. Well, it could monitor, but monitor like more advanced things to say like extract JSON values and make sure that they're the correct JSON values.
What if I want to monitor my mock? Get a whole Inception on Postman, just watch it cave in on itself.
Down the rabbit hole we go. So let's refresh that.
So let's refresh that. Yeah, that's what I was going to do the same.
Cool. So it failed. Well, not cool that it failed, but.
Well, I'm curious if we get anything. So interesting that it calls it a run, like just to be consistent, but error, Tocket timed out. Fair enough. It's quite accurate.
Yeah, that is exactly what happened.
It would be quite good fun if you had played around with it and you had more regions in, and then you I wonder if we add more regions, do we see quite interesting graphs, or do we just no? You have to choose the region.
Yeah.
Can you choose all on that?
Oh, we only
have one, so it's not going to show us.
Should we add
We've got
in?
4 minutes. Let's add some more. I'm curious to see.
Can we add them in? Yeah. Let's go for Canada. Big fan of Canada.
Have we got any in New Zealand, Australia? Because that's always slow. Asia
Pacific, yeah.
Well, that's kind of
just lump them all in. All regions.
Yeah, nice.
So if we click run, you do run. You do run.
Refresh. Ooh.
Oh, it might still be down.
Oh, you think it did not put it back up?
Let's check. Get pods. No, that looks like it's running.
No, we're running.
It might just be that it's running, but it's not. That just means the pod's running. It doesn't necessarily mean that the API inside the pod is running, but it is because we're getting these details. Let's give that a
refresh. Blah. Red. Run again. Keep running.
Run till it goes green. Oh,
one more red.
2 failed tests, 1 error.
Perhaps we're blocking people outside of the UK. Perhaps we're learning something new right now. How do I look on the results?
Oh no, but that's region. But this is region. So Canada's fine.
Canada's happy.
United Kingdom wasn't, and Asia Pacific hasn't finished. So let's refresh one more last time. Asia Pacific's just not doing anything.
No, it says one error.
Yeah.
One error.
All right. So this one errored. It's like so Asia Pacific timed out. United Kingdom and Canada. They failed because we set the response time for 400, and it's just.
455.
Yeah, 455. Yeah.
So we're a bit too fast for these other regions.
Yep.
How do we edit that?
Go back into there. Scroll down to additional preferences. Scroll down.
I'm trying.
So
that is.
That's the time.
Yeah, that's 10 seconds, right?
No, it's 1 second.
1 second.
Yeah. Save change. Oh, it's going on.
Refresh.
I wonder what our quota is.
Don't know, but we're using it. Keep going.
All right, so we got some passes, 1 failed test, 0 errors. It'd be nice to know which one failed, which region failed, but Asia Pacific failed because...
Got no errors now, though. Got a failed test, but no errors. It didn't update. It's still...
Still 400. Yeah, that's.
That'd be too quick.
Well, we can
Keep
go
pressing
back.
it.
We can go back into the Postman test and change it here, but obviously it
Well,
doesn't
actually, I reckon
undo.
if you come out of it and back in it, see if it did up. No, you've updated anyway.
Ah,
Don't matter.
yeah.
Right, last try.
Okay, let's give it one more
All the
crack.
errors. I think either way, we kind of getting an idea of what it's meant to do.
Yep.
And again, I think it's another show of where Postman's going. Like this is kind of free if you've set if you're already utilizing Postman for all your tests.
Hey.
Hey, green. Then this is kind of free for you. They've literally given you as I think this is a pro feature though, right, Mark? I think we've not mentioned that, but I believe this is a pro feature.
Yes, I believe so.
I think it is. I'm not entirely sure either though.
Let me just check. Postman Pro. It might be actually that you just get more. So we might get more monitoring than if it was a free one. What do you get? So you get 1,000 calls for normal Postman, and
Oh, okay.
10,000 calls for Pro, and $20 a month for a pack for 50,000 calls.
Well, that's not too bad, but obviously
Yeah,
they would start to add up
yeah,
if. So yeah, you get 1,000 for free, so that's cool.
yep.
So if you are just doing a bit of testing every now and again, that's probably not too bad. But it's obviously as soon as you get anything that's on a pipeline or any of those monitorings in live, you realistically most people probably want to be monitoring fairly frequently. So those calls could rack up pretty sharpish. But again, I think just to go on this, like we don't go scroll down to the bottom again. Sorry, my mouse has come off the screen for some reason. I think this is a sign of a lot of things to come. Like I know I have this bias. I have a bias about commercial tools that they're expensive, and Postman is one of the new wave of tools that sure it adds up once you've got a big team, but overall, like $18 a month isn't like the thousands that are always in my head when I think of commercial tools.
Yeah.
Prices are changing. Like it's not the huge monolithic tools. I'm not going to name them that we think of, but a lot of the new modern tools are a lot more affordable.
And the fact that they're configured to specific needs, so smaller teams can go for a cheaper option, and if you have, so I think like audit logs is interesting because I've worked in contexts where the audit logs are massively important, but obviously they're quite an expensive thing to support. So by removing that for teams that don't need it to bring the costs down is sort of smart thinking.
Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to thank James because I'm going to thank Mark as well because I didn't know there was the dashboard thing we're even meant to be looking at, to be honest. So I think going forward, I'll make sure one of us has got that open and we have a look at that. So obviously the whole point of doing stuff live is for me and you is it helps us stay on track and focus, but also having people contribute is even better.
Yep. Yeah. So
So
thanks.
that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks to James, and also thanks to Matt for that quick thing about blue means monitor run is in progress. Otherwise, we might have been there for a little while. Appreciate that.
So yeah, like this is to be honest though, like we didn't. I don't think I did learn a lot. Like I do. I'm not. I'm feeling a bit like I want to do another hour because I'm unsatisfied with not fully understanding how this works. But I think that's my own personal issue.
Well, we can add that to the report. So our what do we call them? Our sort of report
Our write-ups,
debrief,
yeah.
our write-ups at the end. So we're now writing up each of these sessions for sort of quick reference material. So maybe we could do like a follow-up blog post that sort of
Yeah,
explores
well, I've
these
got an
things in a bit
urge.
more detail.
We'll probably never get to it. I'll stick it on the backlog, but I've got an urge to go and get a full collection saved in Postman that has the responses saved and then deploy a mock and actually get restful booker running against them.
I think we could do that as
That's kind of
a
what I
thing to
think
do.
I would like to see. And
Yeah.
then maybe add some monitoring to our actual real AiTOnline to, be ever told if it goes down.
Yeah, that'd be really handy.
because I'm not saying it does go down, but we don't know if it does. We have nothing in place. So I think now, seeing as we have the Postman, let's take advantage of it. Look at my new shiny website I built. I'm now
CS.
addicted to CSS. I'm like got big plans to do lots of CSS stuff. Like some cool things here. Look, red button skills. And also 10 minutes ago, well, just before this actually, I deployed this. Look.
Oh,
Ooh,
very nice.
shiny. Anyway, but the reason Mark has loaded this is
Please do
why have
not.
you loaded this website?
Just to say to James, please do not load test my website. My credit card cannot deal with the load testing. And also, I think Cloudflare will block you.
True. But
Um,
while this is up, we will do these. We're aiming to do these every couple of weeks. We will struggle to do that over October and probably even September because we are both traveling a lot. And the reason we are traveling is myself and Mark do a lot of training in the automation space. So we have a list of courses, and we have some space still on AIT, the 3-day course in Munich in September, Zurich in September. Manchester's sold out sadly, but you can join the waiting list. Sydney, going down under.
it's going to be
That's a terrible
exciting.
accent, but I'm going down under. Wellington sold out, and we recently agreed to do one with the awesome people that run Romania Testing Conference. So we are going to be in Bucharest in
Yeah,
November.
it's going to be exciting. They're all
And we will
exciting.
have some next year. They're all exciting. And we will have some more added for next year as well.
Yep.
Once we get them confirmed. And we do it internally as well. So if you are interested in some automation training, we have a list of courses that we offer as well, and you can book them internally. And whilst we're here, we might as well finish the pitch. We also have a list of online courses that we create with Ministry of Testing. That's our chosen platform for any of the online courses that we create. And I say we, that Mark's created. I am in the process of finishing my first one, or starting it / finishing it.
Yes.
But anyway, all the plans for anything AIT online course based will be done with Ministry of Testing.
Yep.
Sweet.
Well, I think it's probably worth just mentioning that there will be a write up. So if you've missed any of the previous streams that we've done, they're all on our YouTube channel, which you can like and subscribe to. Just search for Automation in Testing on YouTube and find our channel there. But we also, like I say, we do write-ups for each of them as well. So if you don't have time to sort of watch through the hour-long session, you can just check out some of the highlights. And we've provided handy little like links to different times and discussions around those points.
I've got one more request. Please send us a list of tools or features of certain tools that you want us to explore. Even though we see all these things all day, when it comes around to actually starting this, we both like just stare blankly into space, going, "I can't think of a single tool." So, if you do have any requests, please get them over, and we'll add them to the backlog. The backlog of list of tools, the list of tools in the backlog.
Yes.
Even.
Yeah, either leave a comment on YouTube or get in touch with us on Twitter at 2-Bit Tester or at Friendly Tester.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to leave you all. Thank you again, Mark. You enjoyed that?
Thank you. Yeah, it was good.
Speak to you soon.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.